But I want to take our closing time here just to deal with this matter of forgiveness, what we've read about here as far as the Lord is concerned and what he has talked about as far as forgiveness is concerned. So when it comes to matters of forgiving, we have these passages here. They're great indicators of how it's supposed to be. So when it comes to if someone has wronged us, that's very much a settled matter. So we already know what he expects of us. So when it comes to the idea of forgiveness, the implied part from verse 12 that we've already looked at in chapter 6 here, Matthew 6 verse 12 says, "Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sinned against us," or trespass. Whatever your translation is, there is something that is clearly understood, that the person praying this recognizes that there is a God and that he is recognizing who we are. And again, that the idea that there might be people with whom we have some kind of a problem, we are never supposed to withhold forgiveness from someone who is requesting it. He doesn't do that with us, and we are not to do that with him. He elaborates further, the Lord does here, as he's teaching them about this, that there is also the matter that if a person is going to harbor in their hearts unforgiveness, that's going to be a problem, and they're going to need to get it straightened out, or else the Lord is going to say, until you can get this worked through, the fact that you would come to me and ask me for forgiveness, but you'll never show that to someone else, that becomes a problem of the heart, and God's going to want to deal with that. So it's not a salvation matter. That's, as I had mentioned before, when it comes to forgiveness, let's go ahead and put some things in their own categories. There is the forgiveness that God will never, ever, for any circumstance, ignore, and that's to the person who cries out to him for salvation to be saved. So that's not what Jesus is talking about in verse 12, because he's not talking to unbelievers. Unbelievers would never come to the Lord and say, forgive me my trespasses in just the day-to-day of things. Those are all the after-the-fact things that the Lord is dealing with in chapter 6. So salvation and forgiveness is one matter entirely. A person who comes before the Lord acknowledging their need for his forgiveness from their sin in the salvation kind of a matter is something that is in a completely different category. That's not what's being spoken about here. Again, because unbelievers are not ever being told or given a model of how they're supposed to pray. If they don't know who God is, they're not praying to him anyway. If their very first prayer is, God, forgive me and cleanse me of my unrighteousness and sin that separates me from you, because their intention and their desire is to be forgiven and cleansed for salvation, that's its own topic. And that's not what the Lord has in mind here. This is person to person that he's talking to here, and he uses the Lord's relationship and ours with him as the model for how this works. So here's what we're supposed to do as we're praying. God, would you help me to be a person who offers forgiveness to those who would seek it as you do with us? So that gets to the point about how is it that we handle forgiveness when a person has wronged us? And so do they have to acknowledge that? And, how do we deal with forgiveness of people if they are unwilling to recognize what they've done and all the rest of it? And the easiest way for us to try to understand that, really the Lord doesn't have to, I don't think, really much elaborate on that. It should be pretty much self-explanatory. Like the unsaved person, God offers forgiveness to all of mankind. It's right there on the table. It's waiting for them to take it. And so it's offered to them. But only those who would say, Lord, I recognize that you have offered forgiveness. I accept your offer. Then the Lord is saying, great, I was giving it to you as an invitation. But the person who will not take that invitation have never acted upon the forgiveness that's offered. The point is, we, if we're going to use the Lord as our example, we offer forgiveness to whoever may have wronged us. And that forgiveness is extended to them if that's what they ask for. Well, what about the person who's wronged us and they don't ask for forgiveness? Don't withhold it from them. Let them know that it's available to them. If they look at you and say, well, I don't need your forgiveness, fine, you don't need to take it. I'm just saying it's there to be offered. You've wronged me and I've made you aware of it. If you don't think that's right, or you don't care, you don't seek my forgiveness, not a problem. It's offered to you nonetheless, and you can move on from it. Now, again, I may have a real problem, even if that person says, yeah, you're right, I did that, and I'll acknowledge it, and so I'm sorry, and accept my forgiveness. Yeah, great. forgiven, not a problem. But if that person shows a propensity for it, they've done that with other people, they're not really good on their word, all the rest of it, it's like, I've totally forgiven you, but I will probably guard myself from being vulnerable to you doing it again. So that may very well figure into the whole calculation. But when it comes to forgiveness, it's a very simple prospect. If it's person to person, then there's some kind of a problem that's gone on. We want them to know that if they come to an understanding of it and they realize what they've been wronged, just know that if they bring that to you, they need to understand that you're willing to forgive no matter what. And yeah, there's not condition on it. So again, if the whole conversation comes up, well, they didn't repent. That's usually one of the things that gets brought up all the time. Well, the idea of them coming and seeking out for your forgiveness is kind of that same thing. It's the recognition that they are the ones who are in the wrong and they want to reconcile that with you. And if that's the case, it's always there to be offered. So the idea of are we putting conditions on our forgiveness? No. Forgiveness is not with condition. It's there offered to them. Whether or not they will accept it and whether or not they will act upon it is another matter entirely. Not your concern. It's not for you to worry about. It's just if there is conflict, deal with it, the reason for the conflict and why it's there. And if there is something that they have done that they need to deal with, they need to acknowledge that. As we do with the Lord, same thing in our inner relations with people. If there is a problem, it is not to be forgotten. It is not to be just kind of ignored. It should be brought out in the open. And if that person has wronged, they can be made aware of that, and that it's okay for them to request it of you, and it is not for you to withhold. So that is more the kind of stuff that the Lord was dealing with here. So again, this is why this is even a question is really kind of an odd thing. It doesn't mean that if a person has no desire, somebody who's done something so horribly wrong to us, and doesn't really care about forgiveness, doesn't care anything about us, it's not that we need to tap them on the shoulder and say, I forgive you. They're not going to want to hear that anyway. What you are at that place, you're just saying, well, if you ever come to your senses, I'll be here and I'm willing to forgive. Again, doesn't mean necessarily that I'm going to always let you in as close as you might have been the first time because you've kind of shown a propensity for it. But again, those are all just little bits and pieces about the person and the circumstance. This is in just the big picture. We are always to offer forgiveness to a person who seeks it, no condition. And again, after that point is done, once that whole thing is taken care of, it's like, okay, you've wronged me, you're forgiven, but it is something that it'll be hard for me to forget that that's taken place. I'm not going to hold it as a thing against you, but I will be very careful if ever put in the position again of needing to trust you or whatever it is that's created the problem. So again, the matter of forgiveness, it's something that gets talked about all the time. We just want to make sure that we're considering there is a forgiveness that happens at salvation. Then there is that time afterwards. And again, if it's a person who doesn't even believe, and yet we're a believer, even more so that we're supposed to be able to toe that line, if you will, and do just as the Lord would be. So if somebody's done something that's offensive towards us, we never withhold any kind of forgiveness. It should be offered at all times. And if they act upon it, it's no strings attached. Doesn't mean that I've got to be your best friend right afterwards and that everything is forgotten. It's forgiven, not necessarily forgotten. It's hard to forget those kind of things, especially depending on what it is. But again, this whole discussion is kind of more of a hypothetical because, you don't know what the wrong was. Doesn't matter. It's not something that the Lord puts a condition on, that there's some kind of a level. Once it reaches this level, you can forgive or not forgive. It's not something that's supposed to be an option. So anyway, just really, really an interesting take on this and what the Lord has to say about it. So forgiveness, if any questions on that or anything that I've covered here, then please contact me through the ministry's website, oldpaththeology.net. And I will look forward to moving through chapter 6.